Hey guys, YouTuber 100 here. Alright, and now as I start to finish off these reviews for the month, as I now jumping into the Peter Jackson Hobbit trilogy, and well, here I am with a review for The Hobbit: An Unexpected Journey. So, yeah, when these movies came out, they received um, the reaction that these movies had. They were I don't really want to say it was a negative reaction these movies had, but they received like kind of an underwhelming reaction because yeah, when people like saw these movies, I think a lot of these people were seeing these films were not really necessarily like fans of the original book, but they were like really loved the Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy, and so yeah, when they went to see these movies, they were like probably really expecting to see like the same thing with these films and like kind of really with the same story and all, and that's not what these movies did at all. I mean, yeah, yeah, these movies really like did tell like a different story than the Lord of the Rings films did, and so yeah, people like because like these movies really were not what people were expecting. People were like kind of like the reaction really was not as good as the Lord of the Rings trilogy was, and people just like really felt like kind of let down by these films. But I really think that people really do need to remember that these films really are not The Lord of the Rings. They're The Hobbit. And The Hobbit really was like a completely different story from The Lord of the Rings. Like, remember, like, if you saw my review for the animated film, I did say that The Hobbit really was like a really short book. Like the original book was actually like a pretty short book, and so yeah, the story really was like pretty simple, and so yeah, the animated film really like told the entire story, and they pretty much kept it like really simple and just really like got through telling the entire story within just like an hour and 15 minutes. And yeah, with these films, like they like stretched it out to make three films that are about 3 hours each. So yeah, that was really like one of the reasons why I think that's really why another one of the reasons why there were some people that really were like kind of like felt let down by these films, and really like some people didn't care for them because I think like the people who do that really are fans of the original book, and so they really didn't like that. Peter Jackson really did like stretch the story out like this and make pretty much like try to do the same thing that he did with the Lord of the Rings and just like really like extend it out into like three films that are almost like 3 hours each. So yeah, I guess that's really one of the reasons why some people really do like feel the way they do about these films and really don't care for them. And yeah, the, the reactions these films got, they were not as good as the reactions for Lord of the Rings. But yeah, like I was just saying, I think that especially with like this film in particular, like I think this film people really were like pretty like kind of really hard on when it came out because yeah, like this is like the opening well, yeah, the first film telling the first part of the story, and so yeah, and yeah, this is the one where I really think people really were like too hard on because of what I was just talking about. They were really expecting Lord of the Rings when this is The Hobbit and not Lord of the Rings. So yeah, I think people really need to give this film like a better chance, and they should like really realize that this really is not telling the same story as Lord of the Rings, and The Hobbit really is like a like a different story from Lord of the Rings. So yeah, I think people really are like kind of like too hard on these films to really like. Some people are like not really, as I said, not really hating on them, but kind of like saying that they were disappointed with them because of like how they turned out with like I said, Peter Jackson really just like really just like extending like a pretty short story from the book into like three movies that are each 3 hours like he did with Lord of the Rings. But yeah, I think like yeah, Peter Jackson really was just like I think he was just like trying to really do the same thing that he did with Lord of the Rings because I mean with like his Lord of the Rings films just like being so critically acclaimed and loved by many, I guess he just felt that he could try to do the same thing with the Hobbit films and well, with the Hobbit story rather, and make it into an entire three-film trilogy in the same fashion as Lord of the Rings. And overall, he did succeed with it. Overall, like I mean, the films really did like they were like big successes. Just the reactions that they got were not as good as Lord of the Rings, just because of what I was talking about before. So yeah, there's that. And yeah, these films, I mean, are they as good as Lord of the Rings? No, I wouldn't say they are, but I mean, they are still like really, really good films. I mean, yeah, but yeah, they are good. But yeah, some of the things people do complain about these movies, I think some of the things people do complain about, they are valid complaints. Like for one thing, like the CGI in these films, I mean, they really just the CGI really is like really like doesn't look very good, especially like compared to the CGI of Lord of the Rings. And plus, there's just like an overabundance of CGI in these films. Like these movies are just loaded with a CGI all over the place. So yeah, so that is one complaint. Just like there's just like way too much CGI in these films, and plus there's also like way too many characters in these films. Also, I mean, yeah, if you saw like my review for the animated version, you remember how many characters actually were in that movie, and yeah, we have a bunch of characters in these films too. Like we do have like some characters that were in Lord of the Rings. Like we still have a Gandalf and a Bilbo. Oh, and let's see, we do have Thorin. He's in this film, and yeah, we do have like some other like recurring characters from the Lord of the Rings in this film with some small appearances. Really, like we have a Saruman, and we have Elrond, Galadriel, y'all. Oh, and yeah, we do have like a few recurring characters like that. But yeah, we do have like all these dwarfs in these films, and yeah, there's like 12 dwarfs in these films, and yeah, it's just like way too many characters. Like, and people really do have a hard time like really remembering all the dwarves in here because there are just so many. We have Balin, oh, or is it Balin, Dwalin, Fili, Kili, Dori, Nori, Ori, Olin, Lowen, Beefer, Bulfor, and Bomber. So yeah, we do have like a whole bunch of characters in here, and yeah, some people really do have a problem like really really remembering all of the characters in this film because there's just so many. And yeah, that's one of the problems. Just because I mean, people just really cannot remember all the characters in this film just because there's so many. I mean, it's not like Lord of the Rings where the characters really were just like wasn't like overload with characters. Like we had Frodo, Sam, Merry, Pippin, and there was Gandalf, Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli. So yeah, the characters in Lord of the Rings, I mean, people all remember, and they are like really memorable characters. And here, just there's just way too many characters, and really like they're just not memorable. And just because there's so many, they can't like balance it out and really just like make the characters very memorable, like in Lord of the Rings. So yeah, that's one of the another problem that these movies have. So yeah, that's another complaint they have. So yeah, there are so yeah, there are like some valid complaints people can make about these films, but I think most of it is just because people really were expecting like the same story as Lord of the Rings, and that's not what these films had. These are a totally different story. So yeah, it's really just because people like a lot of people really do like just are like not really big fans of these movies just because these movies weren't what people thought that they were going to get out of it. So yeah, so yeah, but yeah, these films still are overall good, and yeah, this is definitely like a really good film. Also, I really do like what the story of this film. Like, yeah, of course, like this is just like the first third of the story, and yeah, in the animated film, like it was like pretty short and stuff. So yeah, the way this film does it is just this film really does like have like the elements, some of the elements that were in like the first third of the animated film with like the unexpected journey. Like it has with Gandalf like recruiting a Bilbo to be the burglar for their journey, and it has this stuff with them like getting captured by the trolls and uh, Bilbo like meeting Gollum and him finding the ring and the stuff with them like the Misty Mountains and the goblins and stuff. So yeah, it does still have like those elements that the first third of the animated film did. And yeah, it so yeah, and really it's not like this movie is just like loaded with a lot like of filler stuff with like some it's not like it's something where like it has something from the book and then it just like wastes a bunch of time with like a bunch of filler stuff, and we have to wait like forever until we get like another element from the original book. Like it's not like that. Like this really does like have like it's really is still like focusing on the first part of the story. It's just like the all the parts of the story that are in this film, they're just like seem like really like stretched out and stuff, and they last longer in this film. But it still is like focused on the portion of the story that this film includes. So yeah, it's not really like it's just like complete wasting so much time until we get to another part that was in the original story. So yeah, it still does like a really good job telling the story. And yeah, in this film we do still have like some reprising actors in this film from Lord of the Rings. Like Ian McKellen reprises the role of Gandalf, and yeah, we do have Ian Holm. He does like end up reprising the role of Bilbo at the beginning of this film, and we also do have a Christopher Lee reprising the role as a Sauron, and Kate Blanchett reprising a Galadriel, and Hugo Weaving as Elrond. So yeah, we do have like a few recurring, well, reprising actors from Lord of the Rings in these movies. And so yeah, they still do like really good in here. And yeah, we do have like a lot of like, of course, a lot of new actors here. Like this film, of course, is like set like about 60 years before the events of Fellowship of the Ring. So yeah, most of this film it shows Bilbo as much younger, and so yeah, he has Martin Freeman as Bilbo, much younger. And yeah, we do have Richard Armitage and Ken Scott and Aidan Turner, Graham McTavish, Adam Brown, John Calen. So yeah, a lot of like new actors joining the cast in this film. And yeah, I think that overall, like while there is like an overload of characters in these films, I mean, the cast is still overall like pretty good. And yeah, like I said, Peter Jackson still is like really great at directing this film. And yeah, despite the fact that the story was like really short, I think Peter Jackson really did the best he could do to try to do the same thing with this story as he did with Lord of the Rings, and it did turn out to be a success overall. So yeah, I would give this film 3.5 stars out of 4. Like not it's not really comparable. None of these three films really are comparable to Lord of the Rings, but yeah, like I said, as like an adaptation of a relatively short book and like three films that last about 3 hours long each, I do think that they probably were as good as they could have gotten. So yeah, they still are. This still is a good film overall. So yeah, let me just get right into it. So yeah, the film opens up very very shortly before the events of Fellowship of the Ring. I think it's just like opens up like right before the event where Fellowship of the Ring began, and it shows like Bilbo is like approaching his 111th birthday, and so then Bilbo is starting to write his story of the adventures that he had. Yeah, he's like writing them in the book that Frodo actually did give Sam at the end of Return of the King. So yeah, and so yeah, Bilbo was starting to write his adventures in that book 60 years earlier here for Frodo's benefits, and so then yeah, it showed that the Dwarf King Thror, is that how it's said? Yeah, I'm sorry. He like had an era of prosperity for his kin under the Lonely Mountain until like Smug the dragon ended up arriving and then ended up like destroying the town of Dale, and then he ended up like driving the dwarves out of their Lonely Mountain, and then yeah, Smog ended up like taking mm, the dwarf's gold, and then Thorin, Thor's grandson, and saw Thranduil the king and the wood elves near in the hillside nearby. It's like, and then yeah, they ended up like leaving rather than actually aiding the people, which ended up just like dismaying Thorin. Yeah, and then yeah, it ended up just like making Thorin like absolutely like just hating elves because of what they did. And so then, yeah, it just showed how then yeah, that's just then showed Bilbo then just starting to write it down, and then yeah, there was like then yeah, as like Bilbo was like stopping, then Frodo then showed like Frodo back. Yeah, Frodo made a small appearance in this film, like the very beginning right here, and it just showed yeah, and Elijah Wood does reprise the role of Frodo. Yeah, and it just showed Frodo was like just like helping Bilbo prepare for his birthday party, and then yeah, she just showed like Frodo putting up that sign that Bilbo had in front of his home at the start of Fellowship of the Ring, and then yeah, Frodo then just went off to just be in the place that he was. I was like at the beginning of Fellowship of the Ring and stuff. So yeah, and then yeah, just showed then Bilbo then just like sitting down, and then yeah, then like flash back to like 60 years before, where then it showed like Bilbo was much younger. He was about at the age of 50 at that time. And then yeah, he ended up like coming across Gandalf, and then yeah, Gandalf then just of course he just ended up like talking Bilbo into just like hosting a party for Thorin and his dwarfs, and then yeah, that night then Bilbo then like had all the dwarfs over in his home for the party, and then yeah, then just then, like Gandalf revealed that he was just put Bilbo up to throwing this party to just recruit Bilbo as the burglar to aid them in their quest as to re- regain their treasure in the Lonely Mountain. And then yeah, Bilbo of course like he wasn't on board to actually join in with their journey at first, but then yeah, the next morning he then agreed to it. Oh wait, yeah. And then yeah, as they started to travel, they then like of course ended up like being captured by the three trolls. And then yeah, Bilbo just ended up just like keeping the trolls like distracted and stalled until the next morning, and then yeah, Gandalf then like saved the dwarves and Bilbo by exposing the trolls to sunlight, and then yeah, the trolls just ended up then being turned to stone, and then yeah, they ended up like finding their treasure along with some elven blades in the troll's cave, and then Thorin and Gandalf then ended up like taking an elf-made blade, orc crest and a Glamdring, and then Gandalf like then found like an elven short sword, which he ended up then giving to Bilbo. So I guess that was like when Bilbo ended up receiving his sword Sting. Yeah, and then yeah, then later on, Radagast the Brown, the wizard, ended up finding Gandalf and the others, and then he ended up like remembering like an encounter at Dol Guldur with the necromancer, who was a sorcerer that had been corrupting Greenwood with his dark type of magic, and then as a then after with during like an encounter with the orcs, as the orcs were chasing the group, Gandalf ended up leading them through a hidden passage to Rivendell, and then while they were there, Lord Elrond ended up like revealing a hidden indication of a secret door that was on their map for their journey, and then it will be visible only on Durin's Day. And so then Gandalf eventually approached the later on he ended up like meeting with the White Council, which had like Elrond, Galadriel, and Saruman, and then he ended up like presenting a mortal blade, which was the weapon of the Witch King of Angmar, and then yeah, Radagast and just ended up like actually obtaining that a weapon from Dol Guldur as a sign that the necromancer is linked to like a return of Sauron. And then yeah, Sauron then just ended up like having like pressing up like concern to like their like current situation of the Dwarf's quest, and then he just requested that Gandalf put an end to it, and then yeah, Gandalf ended up like revealing to Galadriel secretly that he actually had anticipated it and had the dwarfs move forward without him. And so yeah, then yeah, the group then ended up like journeying off into the Misty Mountains. And then yeah, they end up like then finding themselves like like in like a colossal battle between stone giants, and then yeah, they took refuge in a cave, and they ended up like being captured by the goblins, and then they were taking them to the Great Goblin, their leader, and then yeah, but yeah, as they were, Bilbo ended up like being separated from the dwarves, and then yeah, he ended up like falling into a crevice, and then yeah, he then of course encountered Gollum, and yeah, Gollum like he still like looked exactly the same as in Lord of the Rings, and yeah, still portrayed by Andy Serkis. And yeah, and then of course like Gollum also ended up like dropping the ring, and yeah, Bilbo ended up like finding it, and then yeah, he just then pocketed the ring for himself, and then yeah, of course like yeah, they ended up like playing the riddle game like I was talking about in the review for the animated film, and then yeah, and yeah, just wager that Bilbo will be shown the way if he wins, or yeah, Gollum will eat him if he loses and stuff. And yeah, Bilbo ended up winning, and yeah, Gollum like ended up like noticing his ring was lost after Bilbo asked Gollum what he has in his pocket, and then yeah, Gollum ended up realizing that Bilbo actually did have the ring, and then yeah, he chased Bilbo for the ring, but then yeah, Bilbo then like ended up discovering that the ring like will turn him invisible when he puts it on, and so then yeah, Bilbo ended up like putting on the ring and stuff, and yeah, he became invisible, and then yeah, Bilbo actually did have an opportunity to kill Gollum, but then Bilbo decided to spare Gollum's life out of pity, and then yeah, he ended up escaping, and then yeah, Gollum then just ended up like shouting his hatred towards Bilbo. Yeah, and then yeah, meanwhile, the Great Goblin ended up revealing to the dwarves that uh, Azog, was that how it said? And who was an orc war chief that actually ended up did kill a Thror. Yeah, I'm sorry. I keep having trouble saying that. Yeah, and he ended up like losing his forearm to Thorin in a battle outside the Dwarven kingdom of Moria. Actually, did place a bounty on Thorin's head, and then yeah, Gandalf ended up then arriving and helped the dwarves escape and killed the Great Goblin, and Bilbo then ended up like finding his way out of the mountain and rejoined with the group, and then yeah, he like kept his ring a secret and didn't tell anyone else about it. Yeah, and yeah, the company ended up like being ambushed by Ozog and his group, and then yeah, he ended up taking and yeah, they ended up like taking a um, sanctuary in trees, and then Thorin then just went after Azog and Hog, and then yeah, Azog ended up like overpowering and Thorin and severely injuring him with his ward. But then yeah, Bilbo ended up saving Thorin from the orcs as they were ended up being rescued by eagles, and then yeah, they ended up escaping to the safety of Carrock, where yeah, Gandalf then ended up reviving Thorin, and then renounced his disdain for Bilbo. Oh, after Bilbo saved him, and so yeah, and then yeah, and then it just like ended with they ended up like seeing the lonely mountains in the distance, and then yeah, and it showed then just a thrush knocking an acorn against the stone on the mountains, and then it showed like inside it show there was like all the treasure from the dwarves, and yeah, it ended up like awaking Smog. And so yeah, it just ended with it showed Smog like just buried in gold, but then yeah, he ended up like being uncovered, and then yeah, it just showed him like opening his eye, and then yeah, it then just cut to credits. So yeah, so this ended just basically like just like Lord of the Rings, where it like kind of just like ended on a cliffhanger to lead into the next film. So yeah, it did like end in the same way that the Lord of the Rings films did. So yeah, I do like how it does do the same style as Lord of the Rings. So yeah. So yeah, overall it is a good movie. I mean, like I said, it does like really like stretch out the first part of the story, but yeah, it still does do it really good. Like it's not something where like I was saying earlier, it's not something like you see like one part of this actual story and then you just like have to sit through a bunch of filler and like just a bunch of added stuff that you don't need and then get another part of the story and then have it happen again. So yeah, it's not like that. It's just that it does have like all the elements of the first part of the story, like the part of the story that this film actually does tell. And yeah, just the elements of it are just like stretched out a lot more, and it's just extended and stuff. They'll have to just make it longer and really just fit the time. And yeah, for what they were able to, for what Peter Jackson could do with it, he did do a good job with it. So yeah, it is a good movie overall. Like I said, 3.5 stars out of 4. Not comparable to Lord of the Rings or Rings really, and yeah, not on par with Lord of the Rings, but yeah, like as the Hobbit movie, as part of the Hobbit, I should say, it still is a pretty good movie overall. So yeah, like I said, people really should like be more lenient on this film and realize that it's the Hobbit and not Lord of the Rings, and how people really shouldn't like really be expecting the same thing that they got with Lord of the Rings, and really realize that this is a different story altogether. So yeah, good movie overall. So yeah, that's those are from my review of Hobbit: An Unexpected Journey. Hope you guys enjoyed this review, and stay tuned as I get to as I continue to review this trilogy with review of Desolation of Smog coming up next, and then yeah, Battle of Five Armies. So yeah, stay tuned for those coming up next as I continue to finish off the month. So I hope you guys did enjoy this review. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.